I'd like to welcome everyone to our On the Mic with Tonya Rapley. Tonya is a best-selling author and certified financial education instructor. I'm sorry. She has appeared as a financial expert on Good Morning America, The Today Show, and CNN, and her work has been featured in Forbes, The Washington Post, and Essence. Tanya has been named a top money expert by Go Banking Rates for 3 consecutive years, and she's known as the Millennial Money Expert, founder of My Fab Finance, and co-host of the award-winning series Going from Broke, executive produced by Ashton Kutcher. So, Tanya, thank you so much for being here with us today, and we are all excited to hear what you have to say and listen to what you have to teach us.
Absolutely. Tammy, thank you for having me, and I'm really looking forward. The way I like to teach finance workshops is I like them to be engaging. I like to learn more about you all. So throughout the session, I will be asking you questions just to get a better understanding of your background, some of your money questions or challenges you might be facing. I welcome questions from everyone. I welcome if you want me to, expand on something, feel free to put in the chat or unmute yourself. And I am going to talk primarily about the emotions around money. At the end, I will talk about credit card debt, and I'm also willing to dig into any other financial related questions you have. Sometimes it's investing, sometimes we have questions about home buying, and I'm educated and comfortable in answering questions on that too. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I think we have but everybody mute, make sure they're muted. I think we have one that's unmuted. I heard a little bit of noise. But I'm going to share my screen. And everybody in the chat, let me know if you can see my screen, if you can see the presentation. I know at times I've had issues with it advancing slides. Okay, perfect. Okay, and after I advance slides, are you able to see it? Okay, perfect. Perfect. One time I was giving a presentation, I was on like slide 3, and they're like, Tanya, we can't see anything. So I always double check now. So the reason why we are here is money is something that we all have in some capacity, some more than others. We all use, but it still creates a lot of stress or questions or confusion for people. And in 2024, Bankrate surveyed US adults and how money affects their mental health. And some of their findings were that 65% of all US adults who say that money negatively impacts their mental health said it was caused by economic factors. And the top cited money related issue negatively impacting mental health is difficulty paying for everyday expenses, with 59% of respondents saying it had a major impact on their mental health, which is understandable. But money is one of the larger stressors in most of our lives. And so the goal is to create finances that feel good. And that's what this workshop is. That's what this presentation is. It's creating finances that feel good. And so Tammy gave a wonderful introduction to me, just a little more. That is my co-host of the show, Going from Broke with Dan Rosenzweig. We have 3 seasons on Cheddar. So if anyone is interested in watching it over the holiday break, if you just happen to want to watch a money series, it's available on Cheddar, which is free. And then my superpower actually, I think is that I'm a mom. I've done all this being a mom. I built this multi-million-dollar financial education company with my son watching, and he is now 6 years old. And it's been a delight. And I think about the money lessons that I have learned and the way that I approach money and manage my money and make financial decisions as not only a gift to me, but a gift to him. My parents were pretty mindful of their financial choices because they went to the military, and their stability is a gift to me. And I look at my financial stability as being a gift to my son. A lot of parents will always approach me and ask me, how can I make better decisions as it relates to money for my children? How can I teach my kids about money right now? What are things I should be doing? And I always say the most important things you could do is exhibit positive money behaviors in your life today and make wise financial decisions. You might not be able to leave them a lot, but you can leave them without debt. You can leave them in a space where you're able to take care of yourself financially. And that is a gift to them as well. Might not be, college paid for and everything else, but it is a gift to them to not have to worry about you financially as you age. And so that is one of my drivers. And today we will cover what financial trauma is and how it shows up in your decisions, the money beliefs and forces that are driving your money story, how trauma and anxiety affect your finances, and how to make the best financial decisions for you. As I said, if you have specific finance related questions related to credit card debt, home ownership, refinancing, or investing, I cannot give investing advice, but I can answer questions you may have about investing, if that makes sense. Like whether you should put your money in a Roth IRA, or, if you should be maximizing your 401k, or if you're self-employed, do you want to use a SEP? So I can answer questions like that, but I can give pointed financial advice and advise on what stocks you should purchase, etc. But I can tell you about platforms you can use as well. And so in the chat, I will give you ladies a heads up that oftentimes this turns out into a form of financial therapy for people, or it starts their financial therapy process, gives them things to go back and talk to their therapist about. And so one of the questions I love starting with is helping us establish where we all got our initial relationship with money from. And so in the chat section, I would love for you to share, what is your first money memory? What is your first money memory? That could be the first time you used money. That's the first time you heard about it, the first time you became aware of it, the first time you earned it. What is your first money memory? And I'm not asking people to come off mute, but I am asking you to share in the chat. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sheila. She said, I remember wanting something and realizing we couldn't get it because of money, because of lack of money. Teresa said is charging parents for tickets to see my brothers and sisters perform a play. Looking for a job change on the sidewalk with your grandfather. On walks with your grandfather. Sorry, I had a little logo pop up. Yeah, so a lot of us, like, some of our money memories are related to earning money. Some of it is realization that, like, we didn't have enough. Buying my first pair of pants with my own money, probably dropping coins in a fountain, giving money away. And it some of these experiences, and like, we have our first money memory, but then from there we build and we create additional memories. And one of the things that I've become really interested in is just like understanding the subconscious relationship with money. I will not get into that here. But our memories are important because our memories start to form how we relate to money automatically, whether it's intentional or unintentional. So a lot of times, I'll talk to people and it is the first time their first money memory is earning money and buying something. So if our first money memory is related to earning to buy, then that's what we assume that money is useful for, is like earning to spend. And so people who usually have that association have more challenges with saving money. I've also found that clients I've worked with who grew up not having enough had financial anxiety that affected their relationship with money. So that could be that they were fearful of never having enough despite having enough, or they would actually put themselves in financial positions where they wouldn't have enough because it reinforced a fear for them that there is not enough money and I will not have enough. And so our first memories related to money are so important because in order to change our financial behaviors and create finances that feel good, we have to acknowledge what is running the show as it relates to our beliefs about money. And Tammy says, I bought a pair of shoes when my mom asked how much I paid. She flipped out. I saw this money she had given me to spend on a trip. Yeah, I agree, Tammy. I feel like maybe a lot of us experience that. I definitely experienced that growing up. And two of my first money memories were watching my mom balance the bill book. My mom was very intentional about me watching her balance the bill book, so I understood why she couldn't spend money on everything. And now, as a parent, I get it. My son thinks that money just literally falls out the sky. So I get it now. And then the other memory was getting birthday gifts and receiving enough money that I could buy a pair of sneakers. My mom did not like buying boy shoes, as she called it, and I was able to buy a pair of gym sneakers that I was really excited about. My mom just kind of like was begrudgingly accompanying me to the store the whole time I was like making my first financial purchase, and I was so excited about it. But those are two money memories that I carry close. And as I began to do my work and still do my work around my financial habits and behaviors, these are things that I remember. And I also want to say that me being a financial educator, I've been teaching this since 2013. And there are still times where I have to stop and ask myself, Tonya, is this a wise financial decision? Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I have to talk myself off the ledge. So I want you to know that even though people are versed on financial practices and the right things to do with money, it doesn't mean they always do what they're supposed to. But the goal is to be committed. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be committed. And if you make a mistake, assess the mistake or assess the overspending. Like, okay, how do I get back on track? How do I fix this? So I just wanted to level set with that too. So we're going to talk about influences and how we spend. And a few things influence how we spend. Cultural expectations. So you all are attorneys or associated with the legal field. So I can imagine. I remember I had another client, and I was he was an entertainment lawyer, and he was saying that he was rich by association, meaning that he had clients, entertainers who were wealthy, and he was always hanging with them, and he didn't want to expect them to foot the bill. He didn't want them to feel like they had to take care of him or pay his way. And so he was always overextending himself financially because of who he was associated with. And that was a culture that he was involved in. It was his professional culture that he was involved in. So sometimes we have professional cultures that influence how we spend. We also have what our societal culture that we're a part of. We have culture within our family that influence how we spend. And when you're aware of what is influencing how you spend, you're able to say, okay, I'm not going to put myself in that position, or I'm going to understand how these things affect how I spend. So if you realize it's a professional expectation of how you spend, sometimes like, you know what? I'm going to sit that event out, or I'm not going to attend that. Or this year, I'm going to do things a little different and resist the urge to, splurge on gift baskets for all my clients, even though that's what is typically done within my corporate culture or my professional culture. And instead, I'm going to give people phone calls and just touch base and see how their year was, especially my clients that are really high revenue and I really value their relationship. I'm just going to extend a personal touch and give them a call instead of sending a gift basket they might give to the mail person. So cultural expectations, family experiences. The family experiences, I mentioned a few of them, and those and some of you mentioned how your family experience impacted your spending or impacted your money memory, and that can also affect how you spend money. Family experiences, my family always had more than we need. My parents, where they spent money excessively, so I spend money excessively. I can speak for myself that one of the things, my parents were really big on having new cars. I feel like my mother and father they purchased a new car maybe like every 2 to 3 years. And so for me, when I became an adult, it was a realization like, hey, Tanya, you don't always have to have a new car. Your car works, it's in good condition. Like, go ahead and pay this car off and enjoy driving a car that is paid off instead of feeling like you always have to trade up your vehicle. And so that's another example for me as a family experience that influenced how I spend. Also, family get-togethers, holidays. I think that one of the things I always ask myself is why I'm buying something. And I encourage you all to ask yourself, why am I making this financial purchase? So an example of that for me is this Thanksgiving, we were going to spend Thanksgiving with family members I hadn't seen in a while. And the previous version of me would buy clothes to sit at Thanksgiving to be around family that I hadn't seen in a while because I wanted to impress them. I decided this year I was going to pull out a dress in my closet that I've had for 6 years. And I wore that dress and I was completely happy. And it just made me realize that sometimes the expectations we put on ourselves, or the experience we assume we're going to have is based on what we assume. We don't ask ourselves why. But asking yourself why, a lot of times you realize the made up stories that you're telling yourself about what you want or what you need. The third is mental health, and we'll get into some of those. And then marketing, we're also going to go into detail on marketing. So I talk about family experiences here, but I would love for you all to think about a money, something you learned about money from a relative close to you. And so for me, I listed out this was really helpful because I listed out all the money lessons, all the lessons that I felt like I learned from these key figureheads in my life. So my great grandpa, my grandfather, my grandmother, one of my closest aunts, my uncle, that I spent a lot of time with as a child, my mom and my dad. I was thinking about how have these individuals impacted my relationship with money? But then I also, part of my journey was thanking them for how they impacted me and gave me positive money lessons, but also being intentional now that I see how these individuals have impacted me, I seek to impact the younger generations behind me or my family members that might come to me for financial advice. So I would love for you all to think about a primary person in your childhood or your adulthood that taught you a money lesson and share that money lesson in the chat section. And I asked because that also allows them to share a money lesson with our group as well. Oh yeah, Sheila. Oh yeah. That sounds kind of like my grandpa Joseph used to say that too. He's always said self-preservation is the first law of nature, and God bless a child that has its own. And that sticks with me. I also didn't mention that I recently was divorced 2 years ago, and I'm so thankful for the financial aptitude that I've had over the past couple of years because it's made that divorce transition a lot better. And my mom always told me, have your own, and I always had my own. So my mom bought a single share in IBM as newlywed. Oh wow, that's amazing, Elizabeth. That is amazing. I feel like that's one of my favorite gifts. I buy my son stocks all the time to not rely on anyone else for money or support. Kylene, yeah. So, and it's interesting because I feel like, especially when we're in groups of women, we're taught like fierce independence when it relates to money. Because it's different when I have men who are, men are their money lessons they hear are very different. For women, I think that a lot of it is enforced by women who we've seen affected by not making the best financial decisions or didn't position them in the best financial position because they weren't mindful of making financial decisions. They maybe were over reliant on a partner, over reliant on someone else. And so it kind of paralyzed them as far as their financial growth. Avoid debt. If you don't have it, don't spend it. Yeah. Okay. All right. So these are some good money lessons. And I would say like one of the my dad me and my dad are very similar, and he taught me a lot about credit, but he also taught me about side hustling. And so even when I had a full-time job, I was always side hustling to bring in more money. My business, My Fab Finance, actually started out as a side hustle. And so I was always looking for ways that I could increase my income outside of just my professional job. And also I graduated from college in 2007. And so during that time, the recession was just kind of kicking off, and I lost my first two jobs out of college. And so I realized how important it was to have multiple revenue streams. So side hustling was something that my dad taught me and was reinforced by my professional experience. And return on energy for me is a concept that a lot of times we look at something, oh, it's not going to cost me that much. But when we look at it as whenever I am making a purchase, I am exchanging hours of my life that it took to earn this money or hours of my thoughts that it took to earn this. We tend to look at those purchases differently. So like, no, it's not small. Is this really giving me a return on the energy and the effort that I put into making the money to purchase this item? And that's another question you can ask yourself. Towards the end, I'll go through like a few things that reiterate like small things you can do to make better financial decisions. And that's one of them. Always be asking questions. Is this a return on my energy? Do I need it, like it, or want it? And as I said, I'll go through those in more detail again. So mental health, the impacts of mental health on our finances are often show up as impulsive spending. So using shopping or spending as a coping mechanism for stress, anxiety, or depression. Poor financial decision making, a difficulty in planning, budgeting, and managing finances due to stress or other mental health related experiences. Increased debt, accumulate. I know Teresa said avoid debt, but usually when you're stressed or when people are stressed or feel like they don't have anywhere to turn, they accumulate debt for medical bills, impulsive purchases, or the inability to manage existing debt ineffectively. And avoidance of financial responsibility. So neglecting all altogether their bills, taxes, or other financial obligations due to overwhelming feelings. And these are some of the ways that mental health challenges can show up in our finances. Or I would say, I wouldn't even say a challenge. I think that we all have exhibited one of these behaviors or another. I don't think anybody's perfect when it comes to their money. And so I think we all have exhibited these behaviors one time or another. And what's important to understand is that we're all just trying to figure it out. And, as a financial educator, empathy is something that I lead with because a lot of times as adults, we say we should. I should have done this. I shouldn't have done this. I should have done this. And it's like the decision has already been made. Saying should or shoulding yourself, as my therapist would say it, like shaming yourself that you should have made a different financial decision isn't going to change what happened. The goal is to change what happens. So we can't change what happened, but we can change what happens by being mindful of our triggers. And so the next one is thinking about financial trauma. Financial trauma is an actual trigger for quite a few people. Trauma is defined as an emotional response to distressing event or a series of events. So financial trauma can refer to the emotional and psychological distress caused by overwhelming financial challenges or crisis. Can some of you share what financial trauma that you've experienced or examples of financial trauma? And it doesn't have to be huge, right? It doesn't have to be big. Trauma can be very small. And that is the thing. Oftentimes we overlook traumatizing events or experiences because we think they have to be huge when it actually can be really small. So I'll start an example of financial trauma. For me, it has been in the past before I started my business, having my car declined. When I moved to New York. I was making $13,000 a year living in New York City when I first moved there. And I was overdrawn all the time, you all. That is one of the reasons that I started my Fab Finance, because I was like, I've worked too hard for this to be my life. But that is a financial trauma that sticks with me. And even to this day, like, even though I know I have money in the account, I will like have a moment of pause, like when I swipe my card or like when I insert my card, like, and I get like a sense of relief when I see that approved sign, even though I know that I have it in there, but it's like it's a traumatic experience that has stayed with me. So does anybody else want to share an example of financial trauma? Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes, Elizabeth. That is highly traumatic because for one, you feel a responsibility to take care of someone else. You kind of feel helpless. And you might even compromise your own finances to support them. You're thinking about now it's almost like vicarious financial trauma, right? Because they're experiencing a stressful financial situation. And now you're stressed out because you want to help alleviate their financial situation. But also the burden, I don't want to say he was a burden, but like the responsibility that landed on you because he wasn't taking care of his financial affairs. So yeah, absolutely. So that can result in trauma in a way, distrust of insurance companies or over reliance on insurance companies. That can result in the trauma of being afraid to tell other people when you need help because you remember how it felt when someone else needed your help.
What?
Oh, hello.
What? Oh, sorry.
It's okay. And so it could result in a few things, but I thank you for sharing that, Elizabeth. Did anybody else want to share? Another example of financial trauma for me or that people experience is losing their job. Losing your job can be extremely, extremely traumatic, especially when you're a breadwinner taking care of your family's affairs, or the family relies on your income. You almost have anxiety over losing a job again. And you have anxiety about, what like how are we going to make ends meet? So that is a highly traumatic experience too. Teresa said I became a partner in my law firm. The CFO sent an email that said because a bunch of client owed a bunch of money that the partners were not going to be paid. Oh, wow. I didn't realize he really didn't consider me and my partner and my husband. I thought we were going to have to go bankrupt. Wow. Wow. Yeah. Traumatic. So it affects how you show up, right? It affects how you, and sometimes trauma can be a catalyst. Trauma can be a catalyst for doing things differently. So like now we're going to require certain things to be done differently of ourselves or of others so that we don't relive or experience this experience again. So how does trauma affect your brain? It's really important to understand that, especially as it relates to finances. You start to have tunnel vision when making decisions, making it harder to consider the long-term consequences or alternative options. In an attempt to overcome financial trauma, you might be willing to take risks that you typically would avoid, such as gambling or making risky investments. And it can lead to decision paralysis where you become overwhelmed or avoid or struggle to make any decision at all. How many of you all have felt like there's just almost decision paralysis where it's like, I have so many decisions to make, I just don't want to make one. I can't be the only person. It's just like, sometimes the best decision just feels like not to make a decision right now because I am so completely overwhelmed. Am I the only person who has dealt with that? I don't know. But that is a way that financial stress can show up for you, especially if you have a lot of debt. Or if you have creditors calling you consistently. It's just like, you know what, I don't know what I'm going to tell them. I don't know what I'm going to do. Let me just avoid. I just don't know what next steps to take. And I'll talk about paying off debt in here because I think that, I look at the news, I look at the headlines as it relates to finances pretty regularly. And I know that debt amounts are going up as more people are relying on debt to keep their cash reserves or they've lost their job. So I'll definitely make sure that I include that. Marketing. So a lot of people do not realize how much money is spent on getting you to compromise your financial best interest. And so this is actually a stat from 2021. And in 2021, so we know that companies are only spending more, but in 2021, the ad spend of companies was $285 billion. The United States has the largest advertising market in the world. So we get marketed to more than any other country. And it is actually pretty insane that the marketing budgets our marketing ad spend is greater than the combined GDPs of Dominican Republic, Cuba, Croatia, Cambodia, Senegal, and Nicaragua. That is all of these countries combined. We are spending more money than their GDP on marketing and getting you to spend money against your best interest. So sometimes when you're asking yourself like, okay, I'm smart. I know what I'm supposed to be doing with my money. Keep in mind that now at this point, it's over $300 billion is being spent to influence you to spend against your best interest. You're going up against a $300 billion machine. It does not mean that you are helpless, but it does mean that you have to be mindful of these are the forces at play that actually benefit from me spending money against my best interest. So in order for me to take control of my finances and create a financial scenario that feels good, I have to choose what is in my best interest and not allow them to influence, but for me to spend what's in my best interest. So how do we begin to make better money choices? The first one is being aware of our core values. And so I typically do an activity, which is a core value activity. I'm not going to do this within our conversation today, but I don't know if anyone works with a qualified therapist, but one of the first activities that I did with my therapist was a core values exercise. And if you all want to do this, if you don't work with a therapist, I can send the link to Tammy of the core value document, and you can go through it and select your core values and do this exercise on your own. But my core values now drive my spending based on like sitting with my therapist and understanding what was most important to me. So my core values are joy, personal growth, freedom, and relationships. And so for me, if it doesn't bring joy, I'm not spending money on it. If it's not, doesn't benefit my personal growth, I'm not spending money on it. If it doesn't help my family, I'm not spending money on it, and so forth. And so asking yourself, like, how does this purchase align with my core values is really important. A lot of people, what we'll do when I'm doing this with a group that has more time is we'll look at their spending, they'll pull up their banking app and look at their spending over the past couple of days. And like, you know what? My core values actually exemplify that I value convenience over stability. So yes, I know I have groceries and I went grocery shopping and I spent all this money, but it wasn't convenient to cook. It was more convenient to order Uber Eats. So my values are actually exhibiting that I value convenience over stability or over resourcefulness. So it's really important to ask yourself, what are my purchases communicating that my values are? The next is to take daily action. Creating finances that feel good requires you to take daily action. So I would say do something daily that you're proud of when it comes to your money. And I have a few examples on the next page. Name something that we could do that daily that we would be proud of when it comes to our money. For me, it is listening to podcasts on money or reading a book or taking time to meditate. I'm really big on meditation. I meditated every day consecutively for the past 748 days. So I'm really, really big on meditation. And sometimes I will do a money meditation on financial wellness. If I'm feeling financial anxiety, that's one thing that I can do that I'm proud of is like, okay, let me calm the anxiety. Or maybe it's not even financial anxiety, but it is actually anxiety that would contribute to me making financial purchases or decisions that are not in my best interest. So meditation for me is something that I do daily that I'm proud of when it comes to my money. Make savings easy, make saving easier and automatic, regular audits of your accounts to avoid lifestyle creep. So this is really big. I recommend that every quarter, looking at your subscriptions that are coming out of your bank account or looking at your subscriptions that are being charged to your phone to make sure that you have a handle on all of the subscriptions that you're paying, because it is very easy to wake up and to like charges every single day. And you're just like, oh my gosh, like, I don't remember authorizing these. These payments are like automatically, of course, they're automatically being deducted. But one of the ways to counter that is to regularly audit. So you're on top of what you're being charged and who is charging you regularly and what subscriptions you're a part of. We're in such a subscription model society because they realize that you can make a lot of money by charging people a small amount of money every single month. And before they know it, they spend a significant amount of money with you because it's almost like a knee-jerk amount. It's an amount that doesn't create a lot of financial stress, but it's enough to make a difference on your bottom line as a business owner. So there's a lot of subscription models as a result of that. The next is change how you spend. I always say you don't have to spend every last dime. And that's something that I had to reprogram myself. Whereas if I saw money in my bank account, I was like, oh, I have XYZ. Now that means I can do this, or now that means I can do that, instead of being like, you know what, Tonya, you weren't even missing that item, transfer to your savings. So change how you spend. You don't have to spend every last dime. The next is ask questions before you buy. First question. And I use this question particularly in those little like mazes that they set up for us when we're checking out at like Marshall's, TJ Maxx. It's just like this maze you have to go around of like Sephora, of things like little knickknacks that you can do to buy to upsell or add to your purchase. And as someone who is familiar with e-commerce, the goal of that is to increase your cost per purchase. And so even though it might be a $9.99 item or a $7.99 candle or a $4.99 notebook or notepad, it still adds to your cost per purchase. And it is adding to their bottom line. And it's something you didn't even come in there. What would happen if I didn't buy this? Do I already have something similar to this? Can I afford to maintain it? Can I afford to maintain it is more so for bigger purchases like cars, houses, electronic devices and everything else. Like that question is really for that. Can I afford to maintain this? And do I already have something similar to this? I can't be the only person who has bought like, it could be a lipstick or a lip gloss or something like that. And I'm like, oh, this is so great. I see it in the store and I get home and realize I already have it in my makeup bag. I used to be really guilty of that. Or the grocery store, not checking what I have in the refrigerator before I go to the grocery store. So now I have a whole bunch of milk and extra heads of cabbage because I didn't realize I had them in my refrigerator. That's another example. Do I already have something similar to this? And now something has to get tossed because we're not going to go through all of this. And Elizabeth says the key thing is to look at your Amex regularly, discovering all those tiny but cumulative costs. They really do add up. Yes, Elizabeth, and it helps you catch fraud. It helps you catch fraud. Yesterday, In my business, we use QuickBooks. And previously, because I'm scaling down in my business, but previously I had this really expensive subscription. And I looked at my billing statement yesterday and it was like a $700 charge. And I was like, wait a minute. I called them. I was like, we haven't even used this service in the past year. I need to go ahead and cancel. And because it was within a certain window, they issued me a refund. But had I not been checking my statement and just been paying our bills, I would not have necessarily caught that. Because I like to put a lot of my credit card payments on auto payment. And so I would not have caught that excessive charge. So that's another benefit to checking your accounts regularly or checking them quarterly, is catching those big mistakes or catching those small, tiny purchases that are sucking money out of your bank account. Financial wellness is being mindful of your spending triggers, creating financial boundaries, learning something new about money regularly, doing something you're proud of when it comes to your money, prioritizing your needs or your wants over your wants, taking care of your older self, choosing to spend money on things that support your dreams and not the dreams of others, and properly leveraging your money to create assets instead of liabilities. When we think about financial wellness, do any of these stand out to you? Do any of these particular items of financial wellness stick out to you? Are there any of them that you want to implement in order to become more financially, I don't want to say well, but more financially confident and more aware financially? And y'all have to pardon me, I'm getting over a cold, so. All right, just checking in. Tammy says, I tend to rebuy things when I can't find them or do not feel like looking. Yeah. Yeah. You know, Tammy, one of the things I also tell myself is like, well, if I lost it, it didn't mean that much to me. But I also understand, like, sometimes there are big things. It's like, okay, I have no idea where this is at. Like, I bought a duster. I bought a duster on Amazon randomly. And I'm like, I actually need to find that duster. But yes. And another thing that I tend to do is I will disconnect my auto payment information, my credit card information from things such as my Amazon account or Shopify. I would disconnect my credit card information because that makes it so much easier to buy. One of the things that is also happening is they're reducing the friction of what it costs for you to buy things. Like, now you don't need a card present to make a lot of financial purchases. Now they will store your card information so you can literally be in your bed, waking up, get a text message about a sale going on, go to the website, check out and make your purchase without even getting out of your bed to get your card. They're removing that friction, and that friction is also leading to increased spending. And so by removing your card, you add another level of friction where it's like, you know what, I am very comfortable in this bed and I am not getting up to go see or go get my card information so that I could enter it to make this purchase. But we're going to move into, we're moving into paying off credit card debt. So I wanted to stop to see if anybody had questions related to what we've talked about so far, or what if you wanted to add anything regarding what we've spoken about so far. Yeah, charities are relentless with solicitations. Yes, there are. Yeah, they get me every time too. And I do have a soft spot for charities. They get me. I actually have a subscription to one now. I'm like, okay, I'm going to cancel that. It's been 3 years I've been giving you all money. But yeah. But does anyone have a question about what we discussed so far? Okay. If anybody's typing one, I'm going to move to the next slide. And then that will officially open it up for a Q&A just to talk about bigger money items. Not bigger money items, because your emotions and your mental capacity and your mental health as relates to money is a big item. But as far as like more specific items, if anybody wants to talk about more specific money related questions. So the last one on this in this particular series is credit card debt tips. So thinking about how you can manage your credit card debt or eliminate your credit card debt better or faster. So the first is to prioritize your debts. And so when we say prioritize your debts, it is which accounts, which accounts are benefiting my credit score the most right now? Which companies do I have a long-standing relationship with? Which accounts do I need to, and this is sometimes for people who are making a decision like who to pay first. As someone who is an entrepreneur, I know that sometimes like it takes invoices a while to clear, and you're just like, you know what? I have to figure out who I'm going to pay first. So with that, it's prioritizing like, okay, what account do I want to make sure does not have any challenges or remains in good standing? Who can I call and let them know so that I don't receive a late fee? What is connected to these accounts? Who is connected to these accounts? Prioritizing those debts first. Then the second is using a debt elimination method that works for you. So debt elimination methods typically are snowball or avalanche. Snowball or avalanche. Snowball is you start with paying the smallest amount, the smallest balance first. So say you have a credit card, say you have 3 credit card balances, one for $347, another one for $176, and another one for $10,000. You're going to start with the $176 one first and aggressively pay that off, or just pay it off. And then that way you keep that balance at zero. You focus on the $300 balance and then pay that one off completely. If you have like a $5,000 limit balance between there, after you pay the $300 one off, then take all of the additional resources you were using for those previous 2 balances and apply it to the $500 balance. And then once you pay the $500 balance off, now we aggressively focus on the $10,000 balance. Now, with the other ones, you are still paying the minimums. So you're not paying the minimums, you're just not paying aggressively on it like you were paying on the smaller debts until you pay those smaller debts out, and then you get aggressive on the larger debts. For avalanche method, some people who are very logical like to say that, you know, my largest debt, that my highest interest rate debt, because that is what is actually costing me the most money. So I'm going to focus on my high interest rate debt first, and then pay it till I pay like my lowest interest rates off last. And so it really just depends on what you prefer. I like small wins. I find that a lot of clients that I work with like the small wins, and so we focus on the small win approach instead. But avalanche or snowball, figure out what works for you. And if you start one and it doesn't work, you can transition over into doing another type of debt elimination method. Balance transfers. A lot of people ask me questions about balance transfers. Balance transfers can be used to manage your credit card debt, but you want to make sure that you're aware of how much they're charging you for that balance transfer, as well as how long your window is before they start charging interest. Because a lot of times they'll say like 0% interest for 18 months if you transfer it to this card, which is great. So you save on interest, but you want to make sure that you're not paying an excessive amount and a transfer fee because what you're saving in interest might be the amount you paid in the transfer fee, and you were just good to leave your accounts where they were instead of opening up another credit card or utilizing another credit card. So balance transfers can be good. You just want to make sure they make good financial sense. And it is a 0% interest card, but ideally for like 18 to 24 months to give you time to pay it off. Debt consolidation is another strategy that people use. With debt consolidation, the company that you use matters. All debt consolidation companies are not created equal, and you want to make sure that you're working with an ethical and legitimate company if you are considering debt consolidation. So I always recommend do a Google search on any company that you're considering. Just type in the company name, review, or blank, blank, blank customer experience, so that you can get a better understanding of how it has impacted clients in the past. Because one strategy that some debt consolidation companies use is they will allow your debts to go into default, and then they will negotiate on your behalf once the debt is in default. So that means that you're getting late fees, and you're getting defaults on your credit, because they are using this as a strategy to use leverage to negotiate with the debt companies, when you probably would have been better off just contacting each of your creditors individually and asking them if they had any type of hardship program they could enroll you in, instead of going with debt consolidation with a debt consolidation company that uses the practices I mentioned previously. And then avoid making decisions without thinking through your solutions. A lot of times we make a decision because we're peer pressured, or we like pride or ego. We feel like let's just get it done. And we're not necessarily thinking about the best decision available to us, or if this is the best decision available to us. So I highly suggest that one of the practices you get in the habit of is avoiding making decisions without thinking through your solutions. Very few big financial decisions or small financial decisions have to be made immediately. give yourself time to step back and ask yourself questions so that you can make the best decision possible and utilize the internet. Like I have found a lot of financial information on like places like Reddit, the FICO scoreboard, or the FICO message board, and a lot of different places. I use that significantly when I was building my credit. And I actually ran into an issue where I carried a zero balance on my credit card, and I didn't realize I was being charged I've been charged the annual fee. And I didn't know that I'd been charged the annual fee, and they actually gave me a 30 days past due, 30-day like a past due for my credit card for the annual fee. And I've had this credit card now at this point, I've had this credit card for like 14 years. But I reached out to them. Was it 14? No, I would say I've had it for like 10 years. And so I reached out to them, and I went to the FICO credit board, the FICO message board, found the contact information to write them, and it was a goodwill letter basically explaining that I've been a client for over 10 years. This was an annual fee that I wasn't aware of. And I asked them to remove this late charge off of my credit report, and they did. And so I was able to find that information and find an example of what I was to write by using a message board. Now we have ChatGPT. You can literally have ChatGPT write that letter for you. But it is important. But you could use a message board or something like that to find the address, the email address that you need to send it to, because I did email it to them. So those are a few credit card tips, especially ranging from like someone who's just, making good progress paying their credit cards off to I made a mistake and I want to get, I want to see if they will extend me some goodwill to help correct this mistake. Those are a few tips that I wanted to share with you all. But before we get into the money persona, because we're coming to a close, as I said, I wanted to create space to answer any specific financial questions you all might have. I do prefer that if you have it, you put it in the chat, because if you put it in the chat, it tends to be a little more succinct. A lot of times if we're talking about, we want to give backstory and everything else, and it's just more succinct if we put in the chat. So I would love to open the floor for any financial questions that you might have that you want to ask me, since I'm here and you have me for the next 10 minutes. Investing, is there a way to start without involving other money people? Yeah. Tammy, there's a few apps that I love. One in particular is called Stash. It's Stash, Stash. And one of the things I love about Stash is you can set up a regular contribution, like it could be $25 weekly, it could be $100 a month, whatever recurrence you want it to. And with Stash, you select different funds that you want to invest in. So my funds I have are women owned or women led companies. They have like a literal like portfolio of women led companies that a portion of my investments will go to. Green futures companies that are sustainable and have green practices. And so it will allocate your money based on what your interests are. So once that deposit hits, it allocates it to those investments and just buys them automatically. And then what I was able to do is I was able to build enough up in my Stash account that I issued a transfer to my investment account that my financial advisor manages. So like my financial advisor, like there's a deposit that goes in over there monthly into my accounts with him. But I actually use Stash to kind of do my own investing and like to grow smaller amounts of money. So that's a great one. And then Stockpile, I use Stockpile to buy stocks. You can buy portions of stock or you can buy full stocks. I'm going to type the name in here because it might be getting lost in transition. Stockpile. I also use this to buy stocks for my son. So you're able to open up custodial accounts. So my son's portfolio is on Stockpile. The important thing, some of you all, I don't know what area of law you practice. It's just important to write these account numbers down and put them in your trust. Like for me, I have in my trust, as well as my people close to me are aware of what these numbers are, so that in the event of my passing, they're able to access the accounts and able to make sure that the money goes where it is needed. But Stockpile and Stash are my two favorites for investing without a money person or a financial advisor. There is also like Fidelity. I do have a IRA through Fidelity. that is pretty easy to manage. And so you can also open up your own investment account and invest. And because I've been an entrepreneur for the past 9 years, there is a way for you to do that too, using the Fidelity platform. But absolutely. And I would also say, Tammy, one of the things I talked about was making financial decisions you're proud of. So I would listen to a podcast or something like that on investing for yourself, or like getting started investing without a financial advisor, to listen for some other helpful tools on things you can do to start growing your money, because it's 2024. You don't need financial advisors anymore. I do have a financial advisor for my larger portfolios because he advises on larger strategy, but for like my smaller, like sub 30,000 and everything, like that's for me to manage. And then if I want, I can issue a transfer. And what I'll often do is I'll grow the money and then issue a transfer to my bigger account. I'll grow the money, issue a transfer into my bigger account. But that was a great question. You're welcome. Does anyone else have a question? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I want to share. Oh, okay, Sheila, I'll answer that. And while I'm answering Sheila's, we have a quiz that we developed, What's Your Money Persona, to get a better understanding of how you relate to money, where you are in your financial journey. If you're interested in taking that quiz, you can scan this QR code while I answer Sheila's question. But it is figuring out like, who am I as it relates to money? Where am I on my financial journey? And like, what does my money say about me? Sheila, if I miss this, what's your thought on how much you need in savings? So how much you need in savings is really relative to your life, right? Before, I would tell people like, 3 months of your overhead is pretty decent if you have a spouse or someone to support you. But now, given this economy and given it how long it is taking for people to find another job, I would say it's taking people on average 9 months to find an opportunity. So I would say anywhere between 9 to 12 months of your overhead is how much you want to have in savings. And that is savings for a rainy day, not savings to buy a house, not savings for a specific goal. That is savings for the goal of, if something happens, we are our own bank and we're able to stay afloat while we figure out what the next best choice is. So I would say 9 to 12 months. Diversify, but don't go crazy. I know people who have all their assets in one bucket and others who have ridiculous number of investment accounts. That is so true, Elizabeth. I would say try to limit it to like 3. Try to limit it to like 3. And like I said, one is with my financial advisor. One is I have with Stockpile, and the other one and with one is with Stash, and one is with Stockpile. And like I said, they're all like they connect to each other with the exception of Stockpile. But my Stash connects to the one with my financial advisor, so I can send that money over there. But yeah, you don't want a bunch of money in different places because it's really hard to make impact and you forget about that money. And sometimes it's good to forget about your money. But the purpose is to be able to know where it is. Yes, be sure that all beneficiaries are designated on all accounts and make sure that all the info isn't old. Yeah, that's part of the maintenance you have to do. I know that the first time I did my trust, when I did my estate planning process, it was such an emotional process that I literally just wanted out. I was like, get it done. I don't want to do this again. But it is really important to update all of your information, all of your documents. And if life change happens, you are responsible for contacting them and letting them know a life change happened. Like when I initially did my trust, my divorce, my house that my marital home was in it. When I got a divorce and we sold it, like that's something that needs to be updated and everything else. And that's something that, yes. So, or like when I buy artwork, I'm an art collector. If I have art that I want in my trust or designated within my will, then I need to contact my attorney who oversees my estate plan and let her know, hey, I made this change, I made this document, like here's the certificate or whatever. So that is really important to maintain. And make sure that everybody who is designated as a beneficiary is someone you want designated. I feel like the first thing I did when I separated from my ex-husband was removed him as a beneficiary of my insurance plan. It took him like a year and a half to remove me. And I was like, you should have been did that. But yes, absolutely make sure your information is all up to date. That was a great point. Okay, well, we are 3 minutes left in the hour. So I know that we are starting to pull things to a close. So I wanted to share just ways that we can stay connected. This is my website, My Fab Finance. We don't do as much on the website anymore. But we are active on social media, My Fab Finance on Instagram, My Fab Finance on Facebook. You can find us there if you want to remain connected. And in the My Fab Finance Instagram, it actually links to my personal account in case you want to remain connected. Or if there was a question that might have come up that you didn't want to ask here, my inbox is always open for you to send over the question, and I will answer it. I really like voice notes, so I probably would just talk it out and answer it to you that way. But that is available for you, and I would love to continue to be a resource for all of you.
Thank you, Tonya. This was excellent. And we also have you coming back in April, I believe.
Yes.
And do you want to give us a little teaser, or are we still workshopping what that's going to be about?
We're still workshopping on it. We're still workshopping, and I would love to find out from those who attended, because these workshops for you. So based on and over time, you can let us know that based on what was discussed here, if you could share, what you would like to learn in the future workshop, and we can make sure that we put it. I can make sure that I put it together for you.
Awesome. Thank you for saying that. So everyone just shoot Jill or myself an email after this and let us know what you want to hear more about. And again, thank you so much, Tonya, and thank you for everyone for participating.
Thank you all. Happy holidays. Happy holidays, and I'll see you in 2025.
Same to you. Take care.